Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome into Coffee Break presented by Bath Fitter. Will Peterson, DMAC, Rachel Veal, hanging out with you for the next 45 minutes to an hour. Gentlemen, how are we? Will, you first?
I'm close to the camera, so I'm trying to figure out how to not be so close to the camera. But I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm good.
I'm
DMAC?
in mourning for my Syracuse Orange as we fire our coach after 47 years.
Oh, did he get fired or did he retire?
Well, it was really funny because he gave a press conference where he said, "Hey, I gave my retirement speech at halftime in another press conference, and nobody picked nobody picked up on it." And I'm like, "Hey, dude, you didn't really retire. That's not how that works." But Jim Boeheim, my indoctrination into sports journalism happened at the feet of Jim Boeheim, one of the most abrasive guys in all of the world of sports. So if I could survive 3 years of covering Jim Boeheim, which I did, and trust me, I got the evil eyeball more than once. Everybody did covering him. You survive that, you can basically survive anything. But to think about how long he's been around, that is how I started in sports, covering Syracuse basketball with Jim Boeheim as a coach when I was, check it, 19 years old. I'm 53.
Wow.
I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, it's crazy how long he's been around. And then he just gets, no, he got fired. He got fired.
Forced retirement. We'll put it that way.
He got fired. I don't know how else. I mean, he's trying to save some grace on the way out, but guys, that is a hell of a way to go down after 47 years. I mean, that there's any confusion whatsoever after 47 years. Forget if, well, like maybe he did retire, but you don't go out that way, even if it did happen. No, it's crazy. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not like Coach K got that treatment a season ago, right? Or Roy Williams got that treatment. Those were a little more ceremonious than
Right.
Jim Boeheim having an awkward press conference and then an hour later it's like, oh yeah, he's no longer the coach.
I mean, his press conference was like, I already retired a week ago. You didn't get it? I mean, that's hysterical.
Okay, would you rather have that? Let's just pretend like he's telling the truth and say, hey, I actually, announced my retirement. Nobody picked it up. Or do you prefer the whole season where it's like every place I go, I want them to be like, this is the last time Coach K is going to be here or whatever it is. The whole around the circle kind of retirement.
I think that's pathetic. I like how Peyton Manning basically did it. Like, you thought he was going to retire, kind of. He didn't confirm it. He gives it some reasonable thought, and in a very classy way, he announces it in front of family and has, the proper amount of respect that goes along with it. Being shoved out the back of the barn and putting out of your misery like an old horse getting ready for the glue factory is what Jim Boeheim got. I mean, I'm sorry. Nobody wants that. And I don't want the year-long, here's a rocking chair, everybody's, I mean, that's too much too. So I think there's got to be a middle, somewhere.
And we've seen athletes do that recently, right? Like, remember when the Cardinals came to town last year with Yadier Molina and Albert Pujols, and the Rockies gave them jerseys before the games because it was their final farewell? It does feel like some of these guys know how to game the system and sort of get the most free gifts out of it. Let's put it that way.
Oh, what a way. Well, you don't want to jinx yourself either, you guys. And Jamal Murray did that yesterday when he had tweeted out, today's the day with the blue or with the arrow and everything, the emojis. It wasn't the day, actually, for everybody. We've got right now up on the screen, you can see both of his tweets because to be the all-time Nuggets three-point leader, he needed 2 to become the leader. He only made 1 last night. I don't know if I want to use the word embarrassing because I feel a little bit bad on that front, but just how bad does the jinx look when you do it to yourself, Will?
Yeah, I was texting the group about this at about 3:30 yesterday afternoon. Like, he just sealed his own fate. He's going to start 0 for 9 and not get it. Well, he didn't even get to 9. He got to 1 for 7. I will give him credit, though, for the second tweet. That shows some self-awareness, right? That shows don't go on Twitter and tell everyone today's the day you're going to break the record, because then you just put undue pressure on yourself. You put a weird juju around the team, and the whole thing blew up not only in Jamal's face, but the Nuggets' face. It was their worst home game of the year by a mile. They got embarrassed by a very mediocre Chicago Bulls team. So I give him credit for the late night one, but don't go declare your own records the day on Twitter. Go break them, and we'll declare you broke the record. You don't have to do it yourself, Jamal.
That game was filled with such bad karma. I can't even tell you. I mean, you want to start with Jamal, what he did. I mean, you're 2 away. 2. I mean, in the last game, he hit 2 threes in his first 2 shots. I mean, how many games has he only had 1 successful three-pointer in at least 7 attempts? I bet you last night was the only one. Then you got Jokic, who took 9 3-pointers. One of them was a half-court heave at the end of the period, so let's just discount that. But still, 8 3-pointers. First game since October that he was under 50% from the field. And he was 2 assists away from getting a triple-double and losing. And the Nuggets were 3 points away from giving up 120 points at home and losing. I mean, guys, this was Michael Malone after the game said, I don't know what to think. I've not seen this all year. It was just so weird. And with that backdrop, guess who was in attendance? The Denver Broncos coaching staff with Sean Payton. And our own Andrew Mason, you got to give him credit, somehow figured out when Nathaniel Hackett and out and the Broncos were at Nuggets games, because they were at both Nuggets and Avs. But when they were at Nuggets games, they were 0 for 2. Now they're 0 for 3. And let me tell you, of course, the coaches there don't automatically, bring bad vibes like that. But it was fascinating to see the crowd reaction to Payton and Payton's reaction to the crowd.
Okay, real quick. You mentioned Mace did a wonderful job, finding the backstory on the Broncos attending Nuggets games. Well, Jake just did a wonderful job. Guess how many times Jamal Murray has shot 7 3-pointers and only made 1?
I'm going to guess this was the only time all year.
You can count on one hand. I'd say 2 or 3 times.
Twice. Including last night. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
But it's jinx, you guys. You can jinx yourself so easily. And I will say real quick, I want to get to the Broncos stuff because I actually kind of find it entertaining. But it is just kind of shocking to me that I don't think the Nuggets had any intentions of really just feeding Jamal. And we talked about this on the drive yesterday, D-Mac. You thought that they were just going to feed it until they got him. I don't think that was the game plan at all. And I don't know if it would have helped him either because obviously they just struggled so hard yesterday.
I think it was an uncomfortable first date. I think they wanted him to get the record, but he didn't want to look selfish. So it was that awkward, first date sort of vibe there. And that set the tone for just a bad game. Because now it's he's not. Well, go ahead, Jamal. No, you're not going to. Go ahead, Jamal. You're not going to. He had many opportunities early in the game just to, come off the screen and try a 3. I mean, he had time after time after time that he could have done it. And I think his teammates were go ahead. And he was trying to say, no, the game's more important. And I mean, it just was a mess. I mean, they did have a lead going into halftime. They did have a lead in the third period. And then they fell apart, guys, with their best players on the court. This was not a case of the second unit failing them. I mean, they were all there. It was bizarre. And then it was just are you ever going to hit one? I mean, are you? And he did hit one. And then that was it. And so now he's going to set this record that he was hyping. In San Antonio, they're terrible, by the way. And who knows what kind of friends and family audience is going to be there. They're certainly not going to recognize his accomplishment in San Antonio. So this record, top to bottom, gets completely watered down. And nobody could have seen this coming.
Well, do you think they load manage him in San Antonio so he can do it on Sunday night at Home Arena? That thought did cross my mind.
Will, that is a amazing good question. Because, and they did this before, they had a game in Milwaukee or something, or Minnesota. I think it was Minnesota, where they didn't even travel 3 guys because it was a road game and then right back for a home game. There weren't other games. That is a great question. You know what? I would load manage. I would do that. I mean, the Spurs stink. It's a road game anyways. Yeah, I actually, you know what, Will? And the record thing is a little ancillary, but that's a cool thing. You can set the record against the Nets over the weekend at home. That's a good one there, Will. I would do that. I would low manage Jamal. I would not even take him on the trip.
Every once in a while I come up with a good idea. I will say this, and Rachel, I know we're going to get to the Broncos coaches, but last night, welcome to the final 17 Nuggets games of the season, guys. This is going to be an absolute slog the rest of the way. Yeah. They don't care about catching Milwaukee or Boston for the number one record in the NBA. Right. They've locked up the 1 seed in the Western Conference. The next month plus of Nuggets basketball is going to be frustrating to watch. It's going to be brutal to watch. And let's just hope they capture that magic again in the playoffs. I think they will, because they'll likely have a weaker round one opponent. But the next month of the Nuggets, for as much fun as the first 4 months of the season has been, the next month's going to be borderline unwatchable. Last night was the start of it.
Okay, so real quick, let's go in hot water. How disappointed did Michael Malone seem last night? Because that's the only reason I could see him looking to San Antonio and saying, whatever the heck happened last night, we're not doing that again. You better get back out there and show that you can play Nuggets basketball, because this is just not how we do things around here. Or do you truthfully think, like he's told the media before, he understands what the actual goal is, and it's getting to the playoffs nice and healthy and moving on and hopefully winning a championship?
No, he was bothered by this, rightfully so. And the reason why was points in the paint. When the Nuggets were outscored 66-38, they were bullied. And he said after the game, I did a poor job in coaching. And that was not a guy who was just kind of okay with the loss. And he wasn't really overly upset, too. Maybe, Will, he is realizing things like, hey, this is going to be a slog here. And I didn't think it was going to be a slog. No. So it is a fair question to ask after last night. Not to panic, but to ask, are teams just going to physically go after the Nuggets? Because Jokic is a good defender, but he's very wary of picking up early fouls. He is. So he very much on purpose stays away from certain elements of physical contact on defense in order for him to just stay in the game. Jokic is hardly ever in foul trouble. So is that what teams are going to do? Are they going to stay away from threes? Are they going to stay away from the Nuggets fast breaking and scoring a lot of points? Are they really, as Michael Malone put it, going to have a half-court fist fight? Is that going to be the playoffs? Because if that's going to be the playoffs, and you saw what happened last night, that's actually a bad sign.
Well, and I think it's easy for Michael Malone to be upset after the game and say all the right things after the game on Wednesday night. He's now slept on it. He's had a good night's sleep. He knows he's got the poor Spurs coming up tomorrow night. Mm-hmm. There's a chance he tells Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, or some combo of the four, you don't even have to get on the plane to San Antonio. I'm with you, D-Mac. He may have been upset in the moment, but I think he wakes up today and cooler heads prevail. And I think it's a lot of Christian Brown and Reggie Jackson tomorrow night against the Spurs.
Well, that's fine, but they still have to figure out what they're going to do if teams just try to bully them in the paint. How are we going to do that? What are we going to do if teams really just don't care about shooting threes? I mean, theoretically, as long as you're shooting threes, it shouldn't actually matter, right, if you're going to do that. But if you're slightly off, as the Nuggets were, I mean, it wasn't just Jamal. I mean, everybody had an off night. Everybody from shooting. And this is probably why the Nuggets will lose games in the playoffs. They will have a bad shooting night, and teams will be physical with them inside. Nobody expects them to go undefeated in the playoffs, okay? That's fine. Every team loses. Every championship team loses in the playoffs. They really do. The question is, when that happens to you in the playoffs, is it just one game? So, and I'm not putting much on the Spurs. I'll put more on that Nets game that they're going to have over the weekend at home to say, all right, let's check ourselves here. And then they go on a 5-game road trip. That's going to be abysmal. People are going to freak out. They're going to lose games. It's going to look bad. That is going to suck. And we'll see how everybody's temperature is. So I do think they have to take some things seriously from last night, or at least come to terms with how they're going to handle it. So I don't take it that lightly, but I'm not freaking out about it either.
No, I think last night was a bad night, and it happens, and you just got to kind of look forward, especially when you've seen the success that they've had, and that's now just 5 home games they've lost on the season, right? Like that was number 5.
Yep.
Like that's crazy. So everybody just take a chill pill. It's going to be okay, but it is interesting, and it's almost a good thing because you can see how a team can be beat, and now you know, okay, what do we need to do to change it? If you're Michael Malone and you're looking at this team and you're like, all right, kind of what you were talking about, DMAC. But everybody in the comments is talking, of course, about the Broncos and how they're getting the blame for them losing. DMAC, what was it actually like at Ball Arena when they showed Sean Payton up on the big screen?
Well, I thought there was a lot of interesting things. First of all, let's just see where he was sitting. Up front row, off to the side, kind of like in a commander's chair. Like a very type A personality, I'm in charge. Not being the social director, I don't know if anybody's spent time in a luxury box, but you could sit in a seat and sort of be in charge of the game, or you can be in the back. You know, do you got some drinks? Do you got some food? Do you got this? Do you got that? You know, that sort of thing. I mean, in all honesty, that's where I sort of gravitate whenever I'm in because there's, you know, clients there or other people there or friends or family. You know, you don't really just sit in a seat and ignore everybody. Well, look at Sean Payton, our guy, Slim Shawnee, sitting in the power position of that box like holding court. Like, I'm going to sit here with my Paris Saint-Germain warm-up jacket. That's where Messi and your guy, France, come on, give it to me. World Cup, not your booty. What is his name? The guy. Mbappe.
That was Dom Jake. Oh, Jake's got to take credit for that.
Anyways, he's wearing that, you know, very foo-foo, she warm-up jacket that screams like, I'm smarter than you. I'm wearing a Paris soccer jacket. He's in that position, and then they put the cameras on him. He doesn't appeal to the camera. He doesn't stand up. He doesn't hoot and holler. He doesn't hold a sign. He doesn't even clap. He does nothing. And the crowd response, polite, like, okay, you know, nice that you're here, but absolutely, positively, like, let's see what you got. So I wrote about it at denversports.com, and to me, it's like you go over to somebody's house and they say, hey, we don't wear shoes in the house. And this guy says, I'll wear shoes wherever I want. And now what are we going to do for our dinner party? You know, it was kind of like that sort of treatment. Like we're sort of all respecting each other and feeling ourselves out. And if you just sort of look at the body language of the coaches, they were all kind of spread apart. VJ was in the back, you know, with like some other coaches. VJ could not have been further away from Sean Payton. Did you notice that? Like where he was standing, where Sean Payton was. And I thought it was amazing if you just want to sort of break down the chemistry in there. And then they went back to Sean Payton because they played that song, You Look Real Good Today. You look real good today. They zero in on Sean Payton. No reaction. Nothing. Nothing from him. Nothing from the crowd. Just nothing. I think this is a burned out fan base that wants to see you prove it to them. They're just not going to accept you blindly like they did last year. What a difference from Nathaniel Hackett sitting in the stands, being interviewed, having Justin Allen, who might have had a, you know, you never know, and, you know, screaming, you know, what are you going to do this year? Score a lot of points. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett was doing interviews left and right on the Jumbotron and on TV. He was banging the drum to start the second half. He was doing everything it could. Sean Payton turned down a request to do a TV interview. It's a totally different vibe.
Well,
DMAC kind of nailed everything there. I mean, listen, for Justin Allen to go on the Jumbotron and we're going to score a lot of points, and that just totally blew up in his face, it's a different vibe in Broncos country. Sean Payton has a resume that's what, 10 times, 50 times, 100 times better than Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Allen, yet he got 1/10 of the ovation because Broncos country is burned out on hope. When Russell Wilson went to the Nuggets game, everyone went crazy. Broncos country isn't going to make that mistake again. If Sean Payton wants to go 12-5 next year and then go to the Nuggets game next March, he'll get a standing ovation and the place will erupt. So, yeah, I just think it was a commentary on Nuggets fans who are also Broncos fans are burned out. And you're right about the altitude TV thing, D-Mac. I know our buddy Vic Lombardi wanted to interview him, and Sean Payton was opposed to that and was not going to let that happen. That just tells you a little something about his personality. Now, maybe if it was his buddy Colin Cowherd, he would have done the interview. But you local guy on NBA TV, I got no time for you. I don't know if that's just Sean Payton being Sean Payton this time around or if that's how he always was. But I found that fascinating, too, that he didn't even want to give 2 minutes to be on a local TV broadcast.
And for the record, I'm fine with all of it. I'm not being critical of Sean Payton. I hope that's not clear, so let me make it clear. I think that's cool what he did. I think it's fine. You don't have to pander. You do have to prove it. I mean, it was a little icy, but that's okay. We already had the clown show. We did. I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with everything he did and how he handled everything. I liked it.
It's a little, I'm too cool and too good for this. And that's what I don't like about it.
That's Slim Shawnee, Rachel. That's him. That's exactly who Slim Shawnee is.
I don't love what Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Outen did. I mean, it was fun in the moment. Don't get me wrong.
People loved it.
But I at least wave and give me some sort of reaction.
Nothing.
I know, and that just bothers
twice.
Because you want the fan base to support you. Well, why would people support you if you're just going to be let me give you the middle finger kind of situation,
I would say it was the middle finger. But I think it was.
You showed me up on a Jumbotron and I essentially just turned my face. You'd be like, screw that girl.
You know what? I probably would have given it a little, hey, let's go, But
or
I mean,
not just hey, what's up, everybody? Instead of hey, I'm gonna just talk and pretend like you're not showing me.
Dude, we got Slim Shawnee, and
I'm gonna ask him a poll. Hold on, we're gonna do a poll. Anyway.
All right,
but it's Sean.
I was fine with it.
It's Sean freaking Payton. The
Yeah.
guy won a Super Bowl. He's got a Netflix movie made after him. He's too good to wave on your Jumbotron or to do your local TV interview. That's Slim Shawnee, baby.
All right. So my other question is, he's from Chicago. Was he rooting for the Bulls last night?
Well, maybe. I mean, that's sure, but you can still wave at the but I'm not critical. I don't care that he didn't. So I don't want to say he should have done anything. Yeah, he might have been rooting for the Bulls for sure. But I mean, it wasn't really who you were rooting for. It was, they were putting you up for the fans who are theoretically, Broncos fans. Listen, it really wouldn't even be that big of a deal if we didn't have something to juxtapose it to. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it really stands out. Yeah. So again, I'm saying this in a positive light. With Nathaniel Hackett, you had a confused cheerleader last year with Slim Shawnee and his crew. And by the way, when you looked at his crew, I mean, it was a mix of, it was definitely a different crew than Nathaniel Hackett. Everything with Nathaniel Hackett was young in the first time. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's Mike Westhoff, who's 90, sitting behind Sean Payton in the booth. Grandpa's grandpa was there. There are some younger coaches. And there's a couple of holdovers. There's a really interesting mix with that crew. But they are not, Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Outen and, score a lot of points and bang the drum. And I did watch Nathaniel Hackett at games. He was like a kid in the candy shop. Yeah. I remember one game where Peyton Manning was there. And so was Hackett. And, Hackett, ran to Peyton Manning. I gotta go see Peyton Manning. It's Peyton Manning didn't go to him. He went to Peyton Manning. I remember this was a long time ago. Drew Lock was at a game and so was Peyton Manning. And they both had front row seats on the court. But Drew Lock was kind of down and Peyton Manning was, more center court. And it was fascinating. They both knew what they were there. They were both shown on the Jumbotron. Who goes to who? And eventually, as the game went on, Drew Lock got up and walked over to say hi to Peyton Manning. I mean, I feel like we're doing a scene out of The Godfather here. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like. And, we got Nathaniel Hackett. He's Fredo. Sean Payton's Michael Corleone.
Here's why Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rachel. My bad.
I was just going to say, here's why I shouldn't do polls while we're in the middle of the show, because I said, do you care if Sean Payton didn't acknowledge the crowd? And I put yes, no, and then don't care. And someone just called me out in the comments for it. But 47% of people are saying they don't care. They don't care if he acknowledges the crowd. They don't care about any of it. So I guess it's just me. Go ahead, Will.
Well, the one other thing I'll say about that suite, excuse me, it was littered with water and soda. Didn't see a single beer up there.
Good.
Food for thought.
I didn't break that down. Really? You looked at it that closely?
Oh, yeah. It was all Dasani, the ones you always steal from the ballerina, you and Jake and Rachel, and then Coca-Cola up there. Yeah, I mean, you don't steal them. You're allowed to have them.
Yes, they're free, Will. I don't steal them. I may hoard them, but I don't steal them.
My point is, I don't think Nathaniel Hackett or Justin Alton were blowing zeros last year. Let's put it that way.
All right, we just put up on the board a picture of Drew Lock and Peyton Manning. In fact, at the Nuggets game that D-Mac was talking about. So funny, love to see it. But we will move on because yesterday on the drive, Will Peterson and I had a conversation about if the Broncos should go after King Henry. Derrick Henry, obviously from the Titans. And Will said, absolutely yes, Will. But it does kind of depend what you have to give up, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't have a first or second round draft pick, so good luck with that, right? But it would be irresponsible to not call and say, hey, we got a third round draft pick. What do you think? And Rachel, you mentioned the $10.5 million. Well, you cut Chase Edmonds, that's $6 million right there. So would any Broncos fan pay Derrick Henry $4.5 more million than Chase Edmonds and give up a third round pick? I think so. So my point was George Payton would be irresponsible not to explore it. Do I think it's enough to get Henry? I don't know. They got a first-round pick for A.J. Brown last year, more premium position at wide receiver, but still, that kind of tells you where the Titans are at when they trade their superstars. So I think they need to call, but I think if they want both third-round picks, that's where things get dicey because the Broncos only have 5 total selections in this draft.
True.
Yeah, you do have 2 third-round picks. You got to use that first pick, I think, on a right tackle. Listen, I would understand it, okay? And I'm not worried about the money. You know, everybody in the beginning of free agency, as the league opens basically next week, the people that go at the early stages always get overpaid. They always do.
Yeah.
I'm not bothered by that. You've got plenty of money under the cap to do it. If you're going to overpay somebody, you are. Get ready. We're about to overpay 2 or 3 guys. I mean, if you're overpaying somebody who is, Derrick Henry, I mean, that's not going to bother me whatsoever. It's the picks that are just like, are you sure? But that being said, there's no way you're going to get a better running back in the draft in the 3rd round. And I think Derrick Henry I think he's proven to be kind of indestructible. I mean, maybe I'm jinxing things here, but that guy, I don't think he's slowing down anytime soon. I think if you got Derrick Henry, you would get him for a good 5-year chunk, which is essentially an NFL running back career. Like, if you draft a guy in the 3rd round, there's 0 guarantees you're going to get that guy for more than 5 years. So if you want to make the argument, hey, listen, we're thinking about drafting a guy and we have to add to the running back room, it costs us our 2nd third-round pick or maybe our 1st third-round pick. And I know they're very close. I think they might even be back-to-back, the Broncos' 3rd-round pick. So I guess they really don't matter. I'd be okay with it, but I'm not dying for it. I think a more prudent decision would just to be pick up David Montgomery and pay him $6 per, something like that, and dump Chase Edmonds, maybe sign Latavius Murray on a low-level 1-year deal, and probably draft somebody deeper on or pick up somebody in free agency. You can do that like undrafted free agent. You can do that all the time with running backs. That was Phillip Lindsay. You can get a Phillip Lindsay sort of guy after the draft's over. So it's a good, interesting conversation. I think they should look into it. I wouldn't be against it, but I'm not pushing for it either. I wouldn't say it's a gargantuan mistake if they don't do it.
So I'm reading what people in the comments are saying. Giovanni said he is 29 and price is high. O-line first, then shiny toys after. They do need an O-line, you guys. They desperately need it. Other people are saying Sutton for Dalvin Cook, straight across. Interesting.
What?
King Henry may have a lot of wear and tear. It may not be wise to give up more assets. And then Latavius Murray would be just fine and maybe draft a running back late. So I feel like people are kind of all over the board with this, but it is definitely an interesting conversation. I just think you need to invest in your O-line. So to give up both 3rd-round picks makes me a little nervous.
If you could trade Cortland Sutton for Dalvin Cook, go for it.
Please.
I mean, that is, have fun with that one.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about something that's never, ever going to happen. But, go for that. Make that happen. Make that happen and I'll be impressed.
I'm with you, Will.
Yeah, I just think they need playmakers on the offensive side of the ball, right? And I understand the O-line is the root of a lot of their problems. But for Broncos fans to, put their nose up at Derrick Henry, come on, it's Derrick Henry. It's King Henry, right? He was the best running back in the NFL over the last 5 years, absolutely. He had a 2,000-yard season mixed in there. He scored like 55 touchdowns, outrageous number in the last 4 seasons. Guys, it's Derrick Henry. The Broncos averaged 16.9 points per game last year, the worst in the NFL. And we're sitting here saying, nah, I'd rather take a third-round tackle out of Mississippi. Come on, guys. It's Derrick Henry. That's all I'm going to say.
If you have Derrick Henry, it's a guaranteed 1,200 yards, at least 12 touchdown season. Probably more. Probably more on both. And, yeah, that would be amazing. But you really... Listen, I'm not against it. But you may get equal production out of David Montgomery if you have the right offensive line. They certainly are going to take a more measured approach with Russell Wilson. They're going to simplify things, I guarantee it. They're going to give him less to consume and less to think about. They're going to take away all of his crap. No more, State of the Union meetings or any of that garbage. That's all gone. So it's going to be a much more simple offense and much more structured for Russell Wilson. He's really going to be contained. That doesn't mean he won't scramble around and try to make plays. I'm just telling you his decision-making process will be hemmed in by a mile.
My biggest concern is how effective can King Henry be if he has a horrible offensive line in front of him. I agree. I'm thinking probably somewhere in between that 1,000, 1,200 yards, which is obviously more than what we're going to see from any of our other running backs. But if you just don't improve that O-line, he can't be the King Henry 2,000-yard monster that he once was.
Well, and that's why you got to root for the Saints to cut Andrew's feet at left guard. You pick him up. I saw a rumor today maybe Cam Fleming comes back as a vet back up at tackle. They draft a tackle. Then you get Bolsey back. They like Quinn Miners, and I don't know what you do at center. Do whatever you want at center. You could get better there, I suppose. This will be a very revamped offensive line with maybe 3 different starters and maybe 4 different really impact players because Bowles missed the majority of the year. So you're going to get it. You're absolutely going to get it, and that's not going to stand in the way of them making a move on running back either.
But the other thing I'll say, Rachel, is Derrick Henry can cover for a crappy offensive line. That's what makes him so good. He's unbelievable breaking tackles and after first contact continuing to gain yards. So you don't need an A++ offensive line to make Derrick Henry look good. Heck, Luke Wattenberg could probably look good with Derrick Henry out there.
Wasn't that also the Javonte Williams? So I guess it really is a question of, is Javonte Williams coming back week 1, or is he not coming back towards the end of the season or at all? And I guess that will probably let us know about King Henry.
I'll be stunned if he comes back week 1, but that would be awesome. I wish nothing but the best for him. He's a great young man with an unbelievable amount of talent who's gone through a terrible, terrible injury. So I'm rooting for it. I'll just be surprised by it. Look at the problems that Gabe Landeskog has having, okay, guys? And Javonte Williams had a much more devastating injury than Gabe Landeskog.
Let's talk about
if they make a big move at running back, it's an indication that Javonte Williams is not coming back anytime soon.
Fair point. Good point.
If running back is just, hey, re-sign Latavius Murray, then Javonte's going to be fine. If running back is trade for King Henry or sign Kareem Hunt, then Javonte's injury is very serious.
Good point by Will.
We will definitely be learning about that. Let's talk about Gabriel Landeskog, because my concern level is so high. And D-Mac, you walked away after talking with Jared Bednar in a very positive mood, and both Will and I yesterday on the drive were not as positive. I don't know if we're going to see Gabriel Landeskog this season, and that makes me really, really, really nervous.
Well, these guys play injured in the playoffs all the time, but they don't play unnecessarily in the regular season if they don't have to. Mm-hmm. So if the Avs have to make the playoffs in the last week of the season, then you'll probably see Gabe Landeskog. I think once they get into the playoffs, you will see Gabe Landeskog, okay? I think he's really hurt with something else. I think there's knee issues for sure, but I really do think there's something else going on too. And you just really, seriously, the world of hockey secrets with injuries is crazy. I think there were setbacks, and I think there's things that aren't connected to other things necessarily. I don't think we really know. And that's, it's hard to judge because I could be, completely wrong too. And boom, he's back on the ice way quicker, which would be wonderful. But just, you've really got to read between the lines here. And reading between the lines, I think it's fair to be concerned about this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fair to be concerned about his career.
Well, and Jared Bednar was a chatty Cathy yesterday, right, D-Mac? There was 5 or 6 of you there, and Jared was just kind of holding court with all of you. You don't get that access to pro coaches during the middle of a season very often. So I know he talked a lot about do they have what it takes to repeat and all that. Excuse me. But Landeskog, that's the first time we've heard him admit that Gabe may not come back this year. Right. That was huge news yesterday. First time the head coach has said, I'm not sure if he's returning this season.
Right.
And then also, he had knee surgery in March. He had knee surgery in October. But whatever this is feels like some sort of third thing that's now going on with Gabe. Because in October, we were told 3 months. Well, guess what? Last time I checked, 3 months from October is January. It's now the middle of March. So clearly something else happened. I don't know why Bednar was in such a good and sharing mood yesterday, but he told you guys an awful lot down there at Family Sports.
Yeah, and don't forget, he was doing a lot of his rehab, to go to your point, Will, out of the state. He was in a couple of different places, even outside the country, because he was in Toronto for a chunk of time. So I think there's something else going on that we don't even know about. Yeah. And that would explain it, by the way. I mean, that would sort of explain why things are the way they are. And I mean, you don't have to be a genius to just watch some of his rehab on the ice. There's plenty of video of it out there now. And listen, just because I've been to a lot of their practice and I see what they do in rehab, you guys just got to know. Like Darren Helm, I'm watching Darren Helm rehab with Shane Allard, their skating coach. Allard's taking him into the boards. He's really battling with the puck. He's really moving hard, and he's wearing a red non-contact sweater. Mm-hmm. When McKinnon was coming back from his abdomen injury, he was like a freight train in his practice rehab sessions, like a freight train. Like it was just like, whoa, like, okay, he's ready. Gabe looks like he's out there with the 45-year-olds during the noontime skate that don't want to have any contact with anybody, but I'm going to wear a Yager shirt and I'm going to skate around and be tired for a half hour. You know, he has that kind of movement right now. So we got to just pause a second. And I think Jared Bednar was setting us up for this. Like, hey, everybody, this might not be the year, okay? You know, we really didn't do what we needed to do, you know, at the trade deadline. We got a good core. Most of them are going to be back next year, and we're hoping Gabe will be too. We were set up with that a little bit yesterday, and he was a good chatty Cathy. He wasn't blabbering on just to hear his own voice. He was just very responsive to very reasonable questions that were being asked. So he did reveal quite a bit and revealed the challenges about repeating something that he's done as a coach in the minor league level, but only Lars Eller and Darren Helm have done on the professional level. Nobody else on the team has ever done what they're trying to do right now. And it's daunting looking at that huge slate of games, thinking about how exhausting the playoffs are. More credit to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Super props to them. I do not know how they did it 3 years in a row. My hat's off to those guys.
And they're still having a good season. Okay, we have two really good questions. Mel asked, why wouldn't the Avs use LTIR cap relief for Landy to make a move? Is it because it's prorated and wouldn't have amounted to enough anyways? ?
They couldn't find anybody they liked. It just, Kane wanted to go to the Rangers, and who else will? I mean, there's just...
Ryan O'Reilly went up to Toronto. Jonathan Toews is dealing with post-COVID stuff, so he didn't get traded at all. But I have a little different take on this than you, D-Mac. I think they screwed up by not using long-term IR, to Mel's point, because they could have brought him back for the playoffs, and that's when he's going to come back anyhow. So there was hundreds of trades made in the NHL. You could have found someone to make this team better by using Landeskog on LTIR. I think that's Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland, who are great. They're unbelievable. A rare mess up by the two of those guys.
Okay, fair. That's fair.
Neil brings up, and maybe this is to your point, DMAC, or maybe they're holding Landy out the way the Nuggets held Jamal out last season because they know the chances of repeating aren't great.
Well, let me tell you this about Nuggets management. They wanted Jamal back. They pushed for Jamal to come back.
Mm-hmm.
They put it on Jamal. Jamal made the right decision. Okay? Hockey players get bullied by management, fans, the culture of the game. The culture of basketball is different. It's probably much smarter. Klay Thompson was telling Jamal, don't do it. Nikola Jokic was telling Jamal, don't do it. His peers were telling him to be careful. And there was pressure from the organization. I'll use Canadian speak if we're talking hockey. Organization to get Jamal back in there. And he smartly ignored it, but got pushed. Guys, I'm telling you, hockey's different. If Gabe's anywhere close and the organization through their process says, we need you, he'll suit up. And he already did. He shouldn't have played during the Stanley Cup last year, guys. He shouldn't have. We know that now. Mm-hmm. If he's pushed, he'll play. Period. Well, it's a different culture.
And let me say this, too. Tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of the last time Gabriel Landeskog played a regular season game. Think about that. After tomorrow, he will have played 20 hockey games in the last calendar year, the 20 playoff games that led the Avalanche to Lord Stanley.
Wow, that's crazy. What a great stat. Crazy.
Which is also another question of, was it worth it? At the end of the day, all these guys want to do is win a Stanley Cup, but if that was the end of your career, like, I'm with DMAC. It was totally worth it, right?
Oh, absolutely. Listen, and we're not rooting for the end of Gabriel Landeskog's career. Let's just make that clear. And we're not even suggesting that's about to happen. You're giving a what-if scenario. Yeah. So under a what-if scenario, I mean, that's an amazing way to wrap it up. You know, Peter Forsberg had this issue years and years and years ago because he had some severe foot issues getting his foot in a skate. He just had a bunch of mush instead of an ankle, and he just could never get it right. Well, he did come back, and it was sad. It was really sad. And it was so sad the Avs were like, they didn't even really want him, I don't think, really, to come back because he was a shadow of his former self. So after a long time out and all these skate fittings and boot fittings and all this work, he came back and he was a shell of his former self. It begs a really interesting question. If you can't really come back and be who you were, what's your last memories of what you did? What do you want them to be? So we'll see. Usually these guys can't give it up. And it's a warning, too. You never know when your careers are over. You don't get a big, you get no promises. Zero promises. So I hope this passes. I hope Gabe gets completely healthy and plays for years and years and years. But listen, he wouldn't be the first guy, guys, who had a terrible injury whose career was cut short. I mean, it's a tale as old as time.
I would be heartbroken if we watched Gabriel play one of his final games. The Avs are playing the Kings tonight at Ball Arena, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. So who are we taking? Who do we like?
Oh, I think the Avs. I mean, listen, you beat the Sharks 6-0. That's the kind of momentum game that gets things back on track. I know the Kings are good. They're near the very top of the Western Conference. But that doesn't mean the Avs can't play with them. We've all said we think the Avs are going to win the West. It's back at Ball Arena. They got the monkey off their back. I think Bednar calling them out worked. And I think that's good for a nice little 5, 6, 7-game win streak here with the schedule getting softer. I know the Kings are not part of that soft schedule, but you're going to let that snowball keep going downhill. Avs will win tonight and propel this into another win streak.
I'll take like Avs 4-2 with an empty netter. You know, like something like that. I think it'll be a really hard-fought, tightly contested game. The Kings are no joke. Will's right. The schedule gets much easier, after the Kings game. I'll go with the Avs, but I'll go 4-2 with an empty netter. I think you're going to have a really great battle down at Ball Arena tonight. I think it'll be a fun game to be at, and I think you'll walk away with a win, but I don't think it'll be a cakewalk whatsoever.
Okay, so the puck line is -1.5 for the Avs, so DMAC is taking it.
I'm taking it on an empty netter, so buyer beware.
Ooh. Oh, they're going to cover this with ease because guess what? The basketball Kings and the hockey Kings neither scare me. The Sacramento Kings do not scare me at all in the playoffs for the Nuggets. The Los Angeles Kings do not scare me at all in the playoffs for the Avalanche. I would challenge any of our viewers out there to name 5 members of the LA Kings, because I sure as heck couldn't do it. They're an up-and-coming team. They're not a threat to win the Cup this year. The Avs will dispose of them tonight, and if the Avs play them in the playoffs, they'll beat them in 4 or 5 games.
All right, so are you riding with me or are you going with Will? I mean, we both have them covering the puck line. I just happen to I have you having a nervous night. Will has you kicking back for a cocktail after the second period.
Another laugher, baby.
We will see. College hoops, though, are also continuing on today. 2 teams moving on, and that is CU and CSU. The Rams are going to be taking on the San Diego Aztecs. D-Mac, who do you like?
The Aztecs. They're the number 1 seeded team. And, it's an Aztec. I mean, he's got a lot of weapons. It's not just one weapon. And they have mythical powers as well. I mean, that's just not going to hold up against a buffalo. I mean, let's keep it real. The Aztecs theoretically would hunt buffalo just for lunch.
You mean
no,
Rams?
Wait, the Aztecs are playing the Rams, not the Buffaloes.
Oh, the Rams. Sorry, my bad. Oh, even a bigger slaughter.
Ouch.
Sorry,
okay,
my bad. Same analysis holds true. An Aztec is going to be much more powerful with magical powers and a variety of weapons against the Ram.
Okay, well, UCLA is taking on the Buffs. Who do you like, Will?
Oh, UCLA is one of the better teams in the country. Tad Boyle's team has had a very disappointing year up in Boulder. This is where James Marilat would call him Teflon Tad. I'm not going to do that because he's got a big recruiting class coming in the next couple of years, and the Buffs will get back on track. But their season more or less ends today against UCLA.
All right.
The Bruins are a bear, right? The Bruins are a bear.
Yeah.
Right? They're in L.A.
Yep.
We just had the release of the movie Cocaine Bear.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm just putting things together here.
Interesting. All right. Well, both Colorado teams were going as L's for today. Hopefully, we're all wrong here. We will definitely find out later this afternoon. Of course, thank you for hanging out with us, everybody. We appreciate your comments. Great questions today, too. We love answering them, and we'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for another episode of Coffee Break for a Friday edition. We'll see you guys then. Have a wonderful Thursday, everybody. Look at that Coffee Break mug, Will Peterson.